Coming Home is where Fake God might be next year.
Ouch, man. Too soon, too soon. All right. I'm live on 2 out of 3 platforms. Let's just make sure I'm live on crap. I opened up some sort of app. I don't know what it is, but it's opening.
What's the third platform? I know Twitch, YouTube,
It's TikTok.
TikTok. Okay.
Yeah, I just started doing this TikTok.
Wait, is there a live stream on that? Like, I've never used this
Yeah.
application before.
They have a live feed as well. Display capture. Huh. Give me a second here and we'll start.
No problem.
Add source. Maybe if I do this. Display capture. Oh, there we go. Discord. Nope, not what I wanted. Crap. Yeah. There is some way to do this. I know. Okay, let's try this one more time. Oh well. Okay. That's good enough, I guess.
So just 2 out of 3?
No, TikTok is working. It's just wait, am I even live on TikTok? It's working. It's just like it's not letting me readjust the portions. So like it's just in the middle of the screen. It's not vertical, it's horizontal. Or it's not portrait, it's landscape. DL have the most undefeated title. Okay, there we go. Oh. I can't name it too long. Alright, we're live everywhere now.
Nice.
Let me make sure that YouTube is working. I didn't check YouTube, sorry. It always takes me forever to get everything working. I appreciate you doing this with me.
Well, when I first said it in the comments, I was kind of just joking at first, but it seems like you actually went with it, so I was like, why not?
I thought so. I was like, dude, you're a lifesaver. I kid you not. I had like so many people just say, sorry, I can't do it. And I was like, all right. I had a lot of people. It was I had over 7 people that were confirmed and deconfirmed. And I had people who said no, obviously, but yeah, it was a lot of people that.
Is that common? People like things come up?
No. Normally, like, yeah, normally they say yes, and then I don't worry about it. But then it was like, at least it was like super early on, you know? It wasn't last minute, 5 minutes before we started. Ignore. Creator dashboard. Stream manager. Huh.
I mean, what was your? I'm curious, like, what your plan is, like, with this, like Saturday, I guess Saturday streams, like the debate ones. Do you plan to have like permanent guests, like kind of like Travis Gafford has like one guest and like callers, I guess?
That's the plan. Once I get once I find the person that can do it. Ideally, I'd want just a regular guest so we can build rapport and like we can understand each other's style and that kind of stuff. But right now, I'm just running through people, which is it's nice. You get to talk to different people and make relations and whatnot. But yeah, eventually, hopefully, it'll be just a couple people. And then for Worlds, I'd like to find someone, and I'd like to do it like every day after the games. I think that like sort of like hot take, just after the game, reacting to it live immediately. 30 minutes, and then we move on. But yeah, I'll get right into the first topic of the day, which is the title of the stream. Team Liquid. Their undefeated season is the most fraudulent undefeated season we've ever seen.
I mean, admittedly, like I've not watched the LCS that long, so I guess I haven't actually seen an undefeated season. Could you tell me who those are?
There has not been an undefeated season in the LCS. There's been LEC, there's been an LCK, T1 did it. LPL has never. It may have, maybe IG did it. No, IG may have won undefeated, but I don't think so. I think the best was BLG, like going only losing one game.
I would be
Um,
shocked if an LPL team went undefeated.
I think there
Seems
were a
like
few
a
teams
heavy.
that were close. Yeah, but
But for TL, well, I mean, you just stated that they're the only team to do it, so I don't know how exactly like we can consider this fraudulent when there's nothing to compare it to. I will say this though, like I don't know how long or have if LCS has ever done like this sort of best of three format, only 7 games. It's much easier to do it in that format than let's say best of one like it was in the spring split with I guess what 14 games.
mhm.
So yeah, you guess like you get like random losses here and there in the best of ones, but you can't really call it fraudulent if no team has done it before.
Well,
I'd
here's
say I
the
can
thing:
say that.
there are teams that have done it. TSM did it. It's just with TSM there are more teams, and it was a double round robin, right? So TSM won 7-0 before in best of threes.
Well, you said that no team had done it. That's why I was confused. So you're
Yeah,
saying that
so
they had done it.
they had to play 18 total best of threes, right? And they went 17-1. But if we're talking just who won 7 best of threes in a row without dropping a game, TSM actually won 14-0. Like they didn't lose a single game. They actually did. Like Team Liquid lost what, 3 games? 2 games maybe? One to FlyQuest, one
Uh,
to yeah,
they lost one to Fly, one to Dig,
and one to
one
Cloud9.
to Cloud9, and one to just three.
Yeah, so
Was it just three?
TSM
Okay, no, yeah, just three.
yeah, TSM has done that 7-game win streak. They've done it. Immortals have done 17-1 in terms of just best of ones. The other thing is, I actually asked the APA and I told them, hey, if this was just same format as Spring Split where you had 14 best of ones, do you think you would have won? Do you think you would have won undefeated? And he said, no, I don't think so. We would have lost the game here or there. I don't think we would have won undefeated. So I think that adds to the idea that just because you went 7-0 against an 8-team league, single round robin, compared to all the other splits and all the other regions, this is the most fraudulent because this means the least, right? It's the least number of games. It's 7. It's the only place where it's a single best. Well, I guess LPL is single, but they have 17 teams, so it's different. But yeah, the single round robin, literally just 7 best of threes. And many teams have done it without going undefeated. And so that takes away from the win. That takes away from the title undefeated because again, it was seven matches.
I was curious, like going into this split, like why exactly. And we did opt for the best of threes. They didn't decide to. I mean, like LCK, right? They go for you play each team twice, and they have the same best of three format, but you're getting more games. I mean, I would say that like it does feel like a pretty small sample size. So when you put it this way, I could see how you could say that's fraudulent, and I would agree that they would not go undefeated in best of one. It's just not really like reasonable. Like the level of dominance is like kind of unprecedented. Like even like a team like Gen G that's like has been by far and away the best team in the world like this year. They just lost I think 2 days ago to KT,
KT, oh
who
my
came off a loss to
god.
Bro, which I thought like was ridiculous, and T1 also lost in that same day to Namshing. But the fact that only one other team has done it, like I'm not sure, was that 2016 TSM we're referring to here?
Yeah.
With okay, so they had double lifts on that team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know how were the teams like other than TSM in that time. I would say like LCS teams like there's some competition like Cloud9 and FlyQuest are not pushovers at all. Like it's pretty decent.
Yeah, well, Cloud9 was doing well in the summer split. I mean, they're the ones that ended up going to Worlds as well. Oh crap, I did not mean to do that. So yeah, I'd say that there was Immortals who went 16-2, so they only lost to what's it called, TSM, and then there was Cloud9 who ended up making it to Worlds and made it to the finals that split. So there were good teams. It's not like there weren't. It's just they had the double round robin, and I think it's the same. You were talking about why does LCK have that? Well, LCK just has a bigger budget, so they can run on, or not bigger budget, but LCK can run on more days. They don't have to just be on the weekends. With LCS, you kind of have to stay on the weekends. If you wanted to do Monday and Friday or to add more games, you'd be running more broadcast hours, and our budget has been slashed, so we don't have the budget to do that. We tried back in 2016 to do dual stream, so you had one stream that had like the game that no one cares about, and one stream that had the game that everyone cared about, and obviously that kind of tore away at viewership and stats and stuff like that. So it's I can understand why if they don't have the budget, they just can't do it. Um, Hopefully, moving forward, once the LCS gets a little bit more of a budget and they can do a double round robin. But I think this was better than last split in terms of format.
I mean, the thing is, I think they probably could do it. Not that they can't. Obviously, you'd be competing with Valorant for that space, so you could have games, but they would just have to be in like the cage.
Well, Val doesn't play on the weekends, on the
Oh,
weekdays.
do they not?
No, they don't.
Well, I guess okay. Is it really a budget thing then? Like,
Yeah.
if the viewership like as they expect to go up, like should go up, and like obviously T1 or Tyler 1 starting to stream should help. I don't see like why you wouldn't want to get more games. Like especially like imagine like if you had like some of like the lesser important games, let's say like during like the weekday, and then like you had like because really realistically there's like three big teams. Like NFL does it sometimes too, where like they'll flex games middle to the year with two teams that are playing very well to
Mhm.
like a primetime slot like Thursday night or Sunday night or Monday night, and like they'll kind of improvise in that sense. I don't know how easy that is to execute, but something like that I think would be interesting if you like highlight some of like the like they do have like game of the day, right? But sometimes it would be nice if they like if we could like solely like focus on that. The only thing is, I guess if the game is like a bust, like the Dignitas Fly series was, then it's a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, but that happens in the NFL as well. That happens in like basketball as well. Like your what is it? Thanksgiving like matchup doesn't always pan out the way you expect it to. So yeah, LCS format is a complete another thing. And I think that's what makes Team Liquid's undefeated streak fraudulent is the fact that the format sucks. If it was LCK format, if it was even LPL format, if it was any other format, if it was a 14-0, like if they went 14-0, I probably still would call it fraud. No, I probably wouldn't.
No
Just
way,
because
impossible.
yeah, 14 games, the only team that did that was Immortals, right? But they ended up going 17-1. They lost their last or second last game, I think. So I still would say it's not as meaningful as other best like undefeated, like when T1 did it, but it's still worth. I think 14-0 is better than whatever Team Liquid did, 7-0.
Aside from the numbers though, you also like I think you need to look at like the actual games themselves. Like how many games or series this year like did you genuinely feel like TL deserved to lose or like TL wasn't the better team? Like even in games they're losing, like the most recent example being in C9, like I always felt like TL was in control of the game. They griefed the fight mid and they lost the game off that, right? And it ended like in a kind of abruptly. I felt like TL was the better team. Game 2 absolutely stomped them. Game 3 was somewhat close for the start, but like TL like kind of distanced themselves pretty convincingly. I don't feel like TL like has like they've had their moments, they've looked shaky, but I never felt like TL was like definitely like the inferior team on any given series and they don't deserve to win. Like it's been pretty convincing if you ask me.
Yeah, but what if they play Cloud9 again, like in a few weeks, and Cloud9 just has improved and they have an opportunity to play again? What if they play FlyQuest now after FlyQuest went to EWC and improved? Like Quad, first game of the split, did not look good. He got solo killed. And now he's the one doing solo kills. He's looked so much better. Maybe if they play now, they don't win. And we're not talking about Team Liquid going in first place into LCS playoffs. We're talking about FlyQuest because FlyQuest managed to beat them. But we don't have that opportunity, so we can't even speculate on it.
Even in that series, like okay, that first series, I feel like Bipple actually was still somewhat on form. I feel like his play has like gotten progressively worse. I also stand to think that I'm not sure exactly about this FlyQuest team. Like Masu has looked like very good and like probably like a dark horse candidate for like MVP potentially, just because like it's just been like very dominant his laning. But the thing that Teal has done so well is that like somehow like they're always lane swapping, and the key players on teams that like are supposed to like be like carries are just like they're kind of just like neutralized or shut out. Like they're not really carrying as like they usually would. Like today, I mean, Energy's not the same quality team, but like Dokla was basically useless today. There was like not much he could do. I guess FlyQuest is one of the better teams with lane swaps. I would say that, and I would also say that TL. One criticism I do have for them is that they've done lane swaps so much. Like people used to say, okay, Yeon, Core JJ are by far the best laners, but like I wonder like why have we gone away from that then? Why haven't we even like tried to lane or like tried to like win lane convincingly? Are we no longer able to like, or if we're not doing that, like when we actually need to, like who knows exactly what we'll need to do in the playoffs or international competition. But when you actually need to, or when teams like start catching on to this lane swapping, I don't know how easy that is to do. But if they manage to do that, how are you going to like do well in lane? But I guess we'll see like the verdict on FlyQuest tomorrow, how they do against C9. But even like some of the games have been pretty like dicey. Like the series versus Immortals, I thought was pretty dicey to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're like good enough to beat TL even now. I like you said, anything could happen, but just the way TL's played, like I don't know, they've been pretty convincingly the best team so far.
But yeah, when you look at what happened in 2016, the team that beat TSM just had a really good day, and they didn't. I'm pretty sure they won like 2 series. That's it. They're like a really crappy team that just happened to play really well that one day. And so you catch TSM on a bad day, you catch Phoenix One on a good day. Same thing with Team Liquid. You find Team Liquid on a bad day, and FlyQuest or even Immortals on a good day, they might take the series. So
Even when you find them on that good day, though, like I would say, like the worst that TL has probably looked this split was when we started with the first game of patch 14.15. Is that a right one?
I think they're 14, 15.
That was probably the worst series that TL had played. I would say like I would mostly attribute that to the fact that they were unsure about the meta. Like Corki and Tristan had both received some major nerfs, and they actually Dig had banned. They banned Sejuani Maokai, which Unti had basically been spamming. So it was unclear the direction that they were willing to go. But even like when they looked bad in that game, like it was like not really doubt that TL was going to lose that game 3. In my mind, like I just didn't see it happening. Like Dignitas, I guess besides that game 1, which is pretty gross, had a pretty good day, I feel like, and they had a pretty decent comp, but it still wasn't enough.
You know who couldn't see it either? TSM. Dyrus was on broadcast when they lost, and he was like, if Phoenix One beat this TSM team, I will shave my head. And he shaved his head because they lost. They beat Immortals, who's looking godlike, and then they lost to Phoenix One. So I think that you can't ever know. Maybe the meta changes, and all of a sudden the meta is assassins, and APA can't play assassins, right? You can't play your AD mids because you're gonna get crapped on by a Zed. And so meta changes. The longer the split is, the more opportunities you have to play, the more you have to be adapting to the meta. So I do think there's
This
there's
is
that
Riot Games,
difference.
though. Let's not pretend like they're just gonna buff Azir before Worlds, and that'll be the mid lane. I would say this though: AP Azir is very, very bad. I don't like that at all. So that would be bad for him. But I don't know. Riot Games, they just go to the revert to the same champions anyways at the end.
All right.
Also, the way they win, okay? Like TL is like a very macro focused team. Like even if you catch them on a bad day, like mechanically wise, like macro doesn't suddenly like disappear. Like yeah, APA in sometimes he Corky Valkyries into the whole enemy team for no reason or does some dumb things. But at the end of the day, like this guy, like he's even in kills, but he just randomly 2k gold up because he hits turret plates, which like for some reason like no other like mid laner or top laner like in the LCS can figure out. Like I don't see anyone else like playing the way that TL does, like just taking things on opposite sides of the map, and like they're constantly just like getting gold even when they're like not winning skirmishes. They don't always win skirmishes. They lose a lot of skirmishes, but they're just constantly like up in gold like when the kills are just even. Like you'll just see like Corky like hitting plates and like TL's like still trying to fight the Herald 4v5, and the fight kind of goes against their favor, or goes in their favor sometimes if they're lucky. But at the end of the day, Corki's still getting those plates, and like even if it's on a bad day, like it's hard to get a huge lead on Team Liquid just because of the way they play.
You
Like
know
maybe I don't
who
know
does
how
that
TSM
too?
was. Who does that?
FlyQuest. FlyQuest get leads all the
Like
time.
that's
They're
to a
down
much
in
lesser
kills.
degree, though.
They're
To a much
not.
lesser degree.
Well, yes, to a much lesser degree. But again, my point is, you catch FlyQuest on a good game, on a good day. You catch Team Liquid on a bad day. Like we've seen Team Liquid have bad days, right? It's just they didn't have enough because they only had 7 games. There's also 2 teams that don't exist, right? Before
That's
we
true.
had
I mean,
10
those
teams.
teams are
Now
good.
we only had 8. Well, the teams that lost were EG, right, which was a pretty good team, and Golden Guardians, which went to
When
Worlds.
they left, EG was kind of a shadow of themselves, right?
They were 4th, or I guess 5th. Yeah, they were 5th.
Fifth place in LCS, I don't know. It's
But
whatever.
still,
And like Golden Guardians, they had I mean, Licorice had a good split for them, but
they finished the season
It's all-
15-2, or like no, sorry, not 15-2. They finished the season. What was it? 15-3. Yeah, sorry. They finished tied for first. They had to play a tiebreaker
yeah,
against.
they were a good team. They ended up, I think they lost in the play-ins, right?
Yeah, they
to,
lost in plans.
BDS.
Yeah, they
The play-in to the play-in, they lost. Not even the
Yeah.
play-ins. They lost to BDS.
yeah they didn't make it to plans.
Series.
All right, my next topic for you. You're wearing a Team Liquid jersey, so I'm assuming your MVP is Impact.
Without a doubt, yeah. There's no doubt
All
about
right,
it in my mind.
why is he the MVP? Because I'm going to tell you why he's not.
To me, there's not like a great like other candidate. Like, first of all, like historically, like in like any sport, let's say like the MVP traditionally, and you could dispute this, I guess, but traditionally goes to like who has been the most important player to at least one of the top teams. Doesn't have to be the best, but at least one of the better teams. That's for one. He's also played the whole split, right? Which is important. You can't just not play from the whole split and be considered an MVP, which I know you'll mention that at some point, but
I actually won't, but all right, keep going. I agree.
okay. And I would say too, like you can just see like in these games, like they're constantly lane swapping, and for some reason, for some godforsaken reason, Impact is always just randomly up like 2 levels on the enemy top laner in every single lane swap that Tio does. Even though lane swapping has been absolutely nerfed to the ground, like there's just like no explanation other than the fact that Impact is so good at that. And you watch him too in team fights. Like when I see a TL TP coming into the fight and it's Impact, like in my mind, like I'm just so confident the play is gonna work out because like, this guy just knows how to team fight in the game 2 today. The top lane, they went for a desperation play energy. Dokla TP top behind with Rumble, and they all went onto the Ornn. Absolutely smurfed the fight. He used R, flashed out of, I don't remember what spell it was, but he flashed out of it, and he still managed to get the second recast of the R and got 2 brittle procs off on the Rumble when Eon was still so far from the fight. And they just absolutely, like, he just absolutely smurfed the fight. He ended up dying, but like, he's just so, it's so impressive what he does. And I did look at some stats. I think the best indicator of like success in a lane swap, let's say, would be like your experience difference, because you like most of the time like top laners are not really farming during this, and you constantly see like he's just like a level up, and it's reflected in the stats. Like he's on average at 436 XP diff at 15 minutes on the enemy top laner. The next highest is around 300 something, which is Thanatos. I think that's more of just Thanatos is very good at laning sort of deal, and him and Blabber are a good duo in terms of 2v2 fighting. But like accurate reflection of like lane swapping, always constantly 1 or 2 levels up. By far the best team fighter for all the top laners in NA. You saw the series versus Cloud9 absolutely neutralized Thanatos. Thanatos was a complete non-factor. This guy that was supposed to be so good coming into NA from Korea, he was like a prodigy. He was some people say better than Castle when he was coming in. So I don't know, I think it speaks for itself. Also, like he just had some carry games too, not just that. Like against 100 Thieves, they had like a 40-minute banger game 1. This guy just locks in more, drops 11 kills. Just has like carry games too when you need it. It's hard to measure his no pun intended impact, but
How
MVP for me.
often? Okay, let's start from here. What is the definition of MVP? Most valuable player. In my books, most valuable has to come from value, right? So it's not the best player on the best team. That's a different thing. The one that brings the most value to that team, not to the league. Because I know another definition is like, who's the most valuable player to the league? I find it as MVP is the most valuable player to that team. How often do you need heroics? How often is it, Impact playing so well that had he not, or the entire team relies on him? How often are the comps based around a top laner? How often is it that Impact is the one that is like leading the game and really pushing? He had like one Mordekaiser game, but that was it, right?
No, he had a great Rumble game too. He had a good K'Sante game. He's had several games.
He's
where
had good
like,
games, but he wasn't. What I'm saying is like it's not like Core had a bad game that game, right? It's not like wasn't playing
The
well.
Jax game too. I think that.
Well, okay, they were full
I
AD.
think Impact
Jax was
carried
never
in the
gonna die.
Jax game.
He was never gonna
Yeah,
die.
I mean,
full AD.
but
That was
hey, like,
draft.
maybe it's a draft diff, but like again, why aren't I don't know. He's saying like he's not carrying, but there's definitely games that he's carrying, and maybe it's through draft. Maybe it's, but he has input on the draft too, right? It's not that players are like speechless on the draft, right?
Well, maybe he can mind control the enemy team to go full AD. I don't know, but my
Well,
point is
that's the second best team in the region, by the way. I don't think they have.
I don't think there's. I think Flak was the second best. That's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is Impact is not the most valuable to his team, right? You could argue that Core JJ is the most valuable on Team Liquid because Core is the soul, heart and soul. Like every single good Impact play, like today, what we saw with Impact, guess who started it? Core on his engages, and actually Auntie was playing pretty good too. So regardless, he's not the most valuable on Team Liquid. And so how can he be MVP when there's someone who's more valuable on that team in Core JJ? We're talking about lane swaps. We know he's the one who's shot calling all this stuff, right? We're talking about just laning. Jan went from looking like a potato.
But he's not the sole reason, let's say, like why Impact is still able to like walk across the map, like randomly gank mid, leash his camp for his jungler, still catch the wave top somehow. Like Impact is still doing things, and there's no way like Impact is not having a say on what's going on. Like in the C9 game, I think it was game 3. Actually, C9 had a TP advantage. I don't remember what happened exactly, but something happened, and Impact made a TP. He made a TP play bot. I think that basically like neutralized the TP advantage that C9 had, and because of that, like TL was able to run away with the game. Whereas like I don't see other top laners like. I mean, like we've seen like Thanatos TP into fights doing what, like into Narnia. We've seen, I don't know. You can pick your top laner, Sniper, that are such good top laners. Maybe you could say are like more valuable to the team. I'm not sure, but like they don't have the same like they don't have that experience. They're not doing the same things that Impact is. Like I think he's the most valuable player to Team Liquid. I don't think it's Core JJ. I think it's Impact.
Regardless of whether you agree or not, my MVP isn't even on Team Liquid. My MVP is Inspired. And the reason is Inspired runs that team. Bwipo is not looking good. Quid has improved. I will agree. Quid has improved. Master has been playing well. Bucio, not so much. And every game, Inspired is always up XP, CS. Even when he teams down, he's always the one. He's playing Engage Lilia, Flash, Q, getting like both carries on ult, getting all the kills. He's playing out of his mind, and he's hard carrying that team. He is more valuable. You take Inspired off of FlyQuest, and FlyQuest dip way more than taking Impact, replacing Impact. Let's just do a swap. If you were to swap Impact for who's another top laner that's really good, like let's just say Thanatos, right? Thanatos is like seen, or Bwipo. Let's just swap between teams. Bwipo, Team Liquid, I agree, they would go down, but I don't think they go down as much as if you took and put him on to FlyQuest and put and swap.
A very poor split though. I don't think it's
okay. Let's say Thanatos. I mean, who else? Like the top lane pool is kind of weak. Okay, Licorice. Licorice is playing pretty good. Licorice is playing pretty good. Even if Dignitas around him is collapsing, he's playing pretty good. I would say he's probably top 3, right? Well, I guess yeah. I would put Impact and then maybe Thanatos second, and then I would put Licorice third. I wouldn't put Bwipo third.
I mean, you could say like he's top 3 in the same way you could say, I don't know, maybe 100 Thieves is top 4 in the LCS, but like there's a big gap between 2 and 3.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that much. I'm not saying who's the best top laner. That's not my question. My question is who's most valuable. If we're talking about who played the best, that's a very different question. We're saying who has the most value. And so I think Inspired just had more value to his team.
I think Inspired had a better split last split, but he didn't win MVP. So if he didn't win MVP last split, if he's
Just because
playing,
he got robbed, just because he got robbed doesn't mean that the next play he should get robbed too.
So do you agree that he was robbed?
Absolutely. I think Quid didn't deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, Monte Cristo put up a good point. Like, if he's think about the fact that Quid was MVP last split and 100 Thieves was first place.
Now they're
like, were they second?
Yeah, they were second. Okay.
Yeah,
after tiebreaker,
but they were tied.
Yeah, they were tied first. You're right.
And they, then all of a sudden, they absolutely look horrible.
I mean, the meta changed.
No, I mean the meta changed, but all of a sudden, why is it the fact that we're not questioning why is 100 Thieves suck now? Maybe because they were frauds from the start.
Well, again, in playoffs, we saw they weren't the number 2 team, right? But just because they played worse one split and not the other, NRG or Team Liquid, last year finished 8th in the first split, and with the same team, same core, made it to Worlds. They took NRG. It's the same thing.
So if we transfer from split to split, could you possibly imagine what people would say if top esports did so good last split, let's say, or I don't know, okay, let's say maybe that's not the best example because they did actually qualify for Worlds, but let's imagine a top 2 team in any region, let's say Fnatic. They're a good regular season team in LEC. They've had their downfalls in the playoffs and against G2, but could you imagine if they came second last split, and then all of a sudden this split they just came they had a losing record against teams like Giants X or
Let me break your heart. Let me break your heart. You're wearing a Team Liquid jersey, aren't you?
I am.
Team Liquid won 4 splits in a row, upgraded their jungler, and didn't even make playoffs the next split. Okay?
Oh.
Cloud9 had the best split we had ever seen in 2020 spring, won first, wasn't even close, and didn't make Worlds the next split. They finished 4th. It's happened before. This isn't the first time it happens.
But people make a big deal out of that. Nobody cares the fact that sucks.
Yes, the fact that no one cares.
So why is Quid not the MVP anymore?
Well,
why is he playing at this level?
Yes, I agree with you. People should be saying, what happened to Quid? What is going on? Is it a coaching staff issue? Are his teammates inting him? I agree. It should be a topic of discussion. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you can play good one split and bad the next split. I think Quid played better last split. If Quid had the same,
MVPs shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, just because they shouldn't doesn't mean they aren't.
Well, which ones are just MVPs and they just suddenly just are terrible now all of a sudden?
Spica went from MVP to literally being on the last place team.
It's a good point. I don't know the history behind that. Was that 2019?
No, 2021. He was MVP of the league, and then 2022 on TSM, they bring in a couple Chinese players, and there was a lot of drama behind that. So it's not exactly that, but he wasn't playing.
Did they change the team a lot?
Let's see. They changed their top laner. They changed their AD carry. They changed their. No, they didn't change.
100 Thieves made no changes going into the next split. 0 changes.
Oh, Team Liquid didn't either.
Okay, wait. What? When you say Team Liquid, which time
last year?
Are we talking about?
Last year, you had 2 separate. You had the same roster. One time, not even make playoffs.
They changed Harry for APA. That was what made.
That's true. That's true.
That was the dragon point.
Well, Team Liquid of 2019 had won 4 splits in a row.
By the way, you know who was top laner for Team Liquid?
Impact.
No, it was Summit last year.
Oh, last year, yeah.
So think about how Team Liquid looked with Summit, and think about how Team Liquid looks now.
I'm not arguing that Impact is a better player than Summit. That's not my argument. But let 2020 C9. They went from
Summit okay. Let's say this though. Summit is is a kind of prototypical top laner that we're describing in the LCS that are great in solo lane but can't team fight. We're talking about Sniper, who people thought was great last split. Thanatos, who people think second best top laner. He was kind of that mold. Dominant top laner, almost single-handedly made them beat T1 in that one Worlds game. I mean, he ended up throwing the game at the end.
That was more Pyosik, honestly, but yeah.
It was Pyosik too, yeah. The Lee Sin was very clean, but Summit was playing fantastic on Cassante. But he's that kind of mold of player, and you see the difference. Also, I want to say too, in the spring split, TL might not make the playoffs if Impact doesn't like 1v9 like the first like 3 splits or 3 series or 3 games of the season on Udyr. Like I don't know if that team actually makes the playoffs. Like if he doesn't have those Udyr
Well, they
games where
lost
he
the first
absolutely
game. They
carries.
lost 100.
Yeah, but the reason why like they're in those games is like I promise you, if you watch it back, is
I
solely because of
remember,
Impact.
yeah. No, I'm not. Again, I'm not saying Impact isn't playing well. My argument is that he's not the most valuable because even if you argue that he's the most valuable on Team Liquid, I'll give you that much.
Yeah,
I think FlyQuest stock in Inspired is more valuable to FlyQuest than Impact is to Team Liquid, and that's why he's the MVP.
I think though that you're underestimating like how those players like became good all of a sudden. Like there's a lot of intangibles that come with Impact that
There are a lot of
where you
intangibles that
are
come with Inspired.
not as much as we might think because
How do
like
you know?
they swapped their mid laner, which was I guess was an improvement, but obviously like Impact did not like the way he was playing. Summit didn't like how APA was playing. Maybe it's not the best comparison, but like all of a sudden like APA accidentally becomes a good side laner. Like I wonder like who's like showing him how to side lane,
I
how
mean, he
to
did say it
collect
was
gold
a
and
lot of
turrets.
caps and a lot of Impact. Again, I'm not saying that Impact isn't a great player. I'm just saying FlyQuest does not function as a team. Like if
But neither
Impact isn't on
neither
there,
does TL.
no,
Because
I think they're still a good team. I think FlyQuest doesn't even make
are they
playoffs.
though? Like
Yes.
if you're looking at longer term, like if you take Impact out, like they wouldn't have gotten to this point where AP is a great side laner. Like all of a sudden they're functioning well as a team.
Yes,
Where
they
like
would. They wouldn't be
no,
as good. They wouldn't have as great of laner, but they'd still be there. He would
they
still
look
have
they
gotten
look
his experience.
they looked so fraudulent in the regular season of the spring split.
That's because
I can't
they weren't a
believe
good
that
team. They improved.
they weren't.
Every
Yeah,
team.
but why did they improve?
It's not just Impact. It's not like
It's not just
Impact.
Impact,
Okay,
but
if it
it's
was
a
just
lot of
Impact,
Impact.
then why did FlyQuest just crash and burn last split? If Impact is so great and so phenomenal at carrying his teammates and making everybody better, last split he had MVP, rookie of the split. He had a phenomenal team on FlyQuest, built, manufactured to make it to just win. Not even just make it to worse, just win. And guess what? He finished 9th. You know who's the
What
only
was the
top laner?
FlyQuest roster on that team?
It was Impact. It was
Yeah.
Spica. It was Vikla, who just won Rookie of the Split, if I'm not mistaken. It was Prince, who looked one of the best AD carries in
I don't know what happened to
LCK.
Prince. The real answer is Prince just completely like fell off. That was the real answer. Prince was an absolute god in one split. The next split, he just disappeared.
Where was Impact? Why didn't Impact put him back up? If we're gonna give Impact the credit for all his teammates, how his teammates played, what happened to Impact? Why was it, he's
think
Korean?
a
Prince is
follow-
Korean. Why didn't he?
I would say a follow like that needs to be studied because I don't think no matter who's on that team, like they just like even an LCK looks absolutely horrible. I think too, like I do hear like some rumors. I don't know how true they are. Like Prince, he didn't like to listen to people give him advice a lot. He was very like close to taking advice. I think like the players on Team Liquid are much more receptive to learning. Like Eon
so
and APA
Jan and
very
APA
hard.
have strengths and that complement Impact. It's not just Impact, right?
Well, that's not just complementing Impact. That's just in order to become like a consistently good like professional player. Like I think that's just a prerequisite to being one. Otherwise, you get those guys like Prince that are so good when they first come, but like all of a sudden, people start catching up with them, and what are you left with?
My point still stands. I think that Inspired is just more valuable to the team. And I guess, look, I give you this much. FlyQuest have not played Cloud9. Maybe FlyQuest played Cloud9, they lose 0-2 and Inspired looks like crap and Blabber is just like smurfing all over him. Sure, maybe then you got me. But if Inspired carries that series and we see him playing up to that level, the MVP level that he should have had last split, you can't come and say, oh no, he was wrong. Like, he doesn't deserve it. He at least is in the conversation. Everyone's saying it's Impact and bust. You even putting Jan before what's his name? Before, man, what is his name? Inspired? Like, come on. Inspired is the most pivotal piece.
I wouldn't say that Jan's higher than Inspired. I would say that Inspired is higher. I would say though, like the win con for FlyQuest has changed like through the split though. Like it was okay, Whippo Inspired, they do the work. All of a sudden, like in MSI, like they completely troll and like for some reason Whippo was not being the same player. And then like now it's like I feel like it's like Masu and Busio like dictating the flow in a lot of these games. Like his Kalista games in the 100 Thieves series, which is actually pretty close, was 2-1 for FlyQuest. Like, I feel like he carried those games. Am I wrong to think that? I feel like he was the reason they won for sure. Like,
I'm not saying he
they
didn't play
won so
well.
hard, but
Core plays well too, right? And that's not taking away from what Impact is doing. Masu
the
playing
fact that
well
they got
doesn't
ahead
take
is not
away.
because of Impact ganking them. It was they actually got several solo kills with Kalista, which snowballed the game.
Yes, they're Inspired's teammates have had pop off games, just like APA solo killing Quid and winning the game, the first game of the split. Right? It's not. I'm not saying that just because one. I'm not saying Inspired's team is all crap, and he's the only reason that they're there. That's not what I'm saying.
You're saying
I'm
the
not
opposite,
saying
actually.
what.
You're saying the opposite.
I'm saying he
They're all
has good
good.
teammates. They're not playing as well as last split. I don't think Busio and not Impact. What's the top laner? Whippo are playing nearly as well as they did last split. I think Whippo played way better last split, and I think you agree with me. And yet at the same time, despite his core, right, the two leaders, there are two leaders on this team. There's Inspired and Whippo. One of them is not doing well. The other one picked up that burden and is keeping up with the team. Right? They only lost to one team in Team Liquid. They haven't played Cloud9 yet, so I'll leave the final decision. But I think just blindly saying Impact is playing the best on the best team, therefore he's the MVP, doesn't make sense to me. Because that doesn't mean he's the most.
Being as good as we're saying though. Like, I mean, maybe
rewatch
I'm cheating
the
by doing
games.
this.
Rewatch the games, man.
I did just look at a stat. Maybe I'm cheating by doing this, but like for all junglers,
you can look at stats, yeah.
For all junglers, where do you think he is in KP percentage? For all junglers that have played this split.
Well, FlyQuest play a better macro game, and so they probably have more situations where they're splitting the map, or they're taking team fights where it's like 2v1. So you'll have Quad and what's his name, Whippo, like trailing the split push and getting a kill, and so he won't be there. It's not like Boogie, for example, probably has a higher percentage because Boogie's just wherever Boogie is, the action happens.
Boogie's number one, actually. Boogie's
yeah,
number one.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean he's better than Inspired. That doesn't mean he's better than Inspired. It just means he's the center of action.
If Inspired was only like in the middle, like I probably wouldn't care. But he's actually second lowest, like 62%, which I thought it's actually kind of shocking for me. But I mean, I think that it's like definitely like his play has not been as good in this split. I mean, FlyQuest wins have not been nearly as convincing this split than it was last split. I don't think so at all.
I think it's a matter of meta. Last meta, when he's playing Vi and he's the engaged, he's playing Sejuani and Maokai, you can see exactly what he's doing. But you don't see what he's doing when he's playing Taliyah and he's like 2 camps ahead somehow against the brand. Or not Taliyah, sorry. Zyra, and he's 2 camps ahead and he's taking every objective. And it's not as flashy.
I don't know. Zyra just like, it feels so bad to give an MVP to just someone who just spams Zyra games because like that just feels so brain dead. That champ, like just sequence up, sequence down, and just do your thing on Zyra. Just like I think no matter how you play that champ, as long as you farm camps, like you'll constantly be like 20 CS ahead. That's just how the champion works. I don't think that's a uniquely inspired attribute. I think that if anyone plays Zyra, they're just gonna be 20 CS ahead no matter what. Like we saw, like the C9, Blabber basically soloed the Baron. He just
it was Zyra
for like 30 seconds, put Zyra plants down, and they just soloed the Baron. I just think that champ was completely broken. That's my take on that. It feels bad to give MVP to someone that just like plays Zyra, clears up, clears down, and that's it. I don't know.
Well, people do it better than one way or another, and his team fights are really clean. He shines in those team fights. The way he creates space for his carries. I mean, you could argue impact team fighting is great. I think we're going past the point, but I'll say this: I won't give Inspired the MVP until we see what happens next week against FlyQuest, against Cloud9, which brings me to my next topic.
Who wins tomorrow? Or
did I say next week? Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
My brain's all over. This week I knew if we lost, I was just gonna be all over the place, and I am all over the place.
Go for you, man. Go for you.
But yeah, tell me. Brings me to my next topic. Who's gonna win, Cloud9 or FlyQuest?
It's a good question. On one hand, like, I think Cloud9, the fact that they did play TL actually might be to their benefit, even though they lost. I think that they have the opportunity to reflect on that loss, like do some reviewing of the game, and maybe learn from how TL played in that game. And it's one thing to like watch TL like passively, like okay, when TL is playing, I don't know, like Immortals, who cares? But when you're actually playing against them, I think that's something different, and it at least gives them the opportunity to have very good preparation to what um FlyQuest will do. I will say though, they need to get their draft sorted out. I don't know what they've
Mhm.
been doing with these drafts. I think that FlyQuest has have generally much better drafts than C9. So I'm gonna actually say FlyQuest to win because I think that they draft better, and it should be a close series at least. So I think that in those close games, like it will be drafts that are probably like making the difference.
You give it what, 2-1?
Yeah, it's not going to be 2-0 for any team. If it would, I would be very shocked. But I don't think any team is clean enough, like Fly or C9 have been clean enough to 2-0 in those games.
All right. Well, I'm giving it TO to C9. So I'll tell you why. I think FlyQuest are the better team. But I will say this. I have not seen Whippo be the same since MSI. And I think you agree with me. You said that the same thing. I think this
Yeah.
FlyQuest team is superior to C9 in every way. Maybe not in every way, but in most ways. They are just a better team. They have better macro. They're equal in lane. That their objective setups are better. But what happens when you identify when the weak point right now of FlyQuest is the strong point of C9? C9 have Berserker, who's playing really well, Berserker and Vulcan, and you have the top laner in Thanatos, who is just running the league, right? When he plays against Impact, against Impact, he got ran. Against everybody else, he was running them, right? Would you agree with that?
Mm. I wouldn't say even running. Like his first
He was
few
30
weeks,
CS though over everybody. Come on, no one else is
but
doing that.
if you are watching these games, like he's not like doing anything like crazy. Like to say he's running the league, I don't think that's right.
Okay,
like,
he's winning his lane.
Most of the time, yes. At the start of the split, I guess that's because he's joining a new team, and like I don't know how good his English is. Maybe he can't communicate that great yet. But you know, he's not he like it wasn't that convincing. Like his early Camille games, not very convincing. He was
Right now, he's playing it very, very well in terms of laning.
Yeah, I would say so.
Map play, he's a little dizzy. I agree. What
Mhm.
happens when Busio just lost to B-Boy and Zeyzal, right? Just every single game, completely inting, running it down. They're not playing well. We saw this at MSI. We saw that in playoffs last split, and we're seeing it here again. So I have confidence in Busio inting it. I can't.
Yeah, that would be one important factor for Cloud9 or FlyQuest to win.
Yeah, and guess what? It is Berserker's meta. He is playing the Zeri, he's playing the Kai'Sa, and he is running with it. You have a top laner that's going to win because Bwipo cannot neutralize anything for his life. Bwipo got bodied by by Fake God, okay? He made Fake God look like a real god. And so you can't tell me Thanatos isn't going to be running that lane, all right? You like that.
But the thing is, though, will it matter? Because FlyQuest has been a team that has shown they're willing to lane swap. So I would be shocked if FlyQuest does not lane swap a single game.
FlyQuest are not as good as Team Liquid when it comes to lane swapping. And
Right,
what you said in the very beginning, what you said in the very beginning was C9 had that experience against Team Liquid. They're probably scrimming Team Liquid now because they didn't scrim them before because they were about to play, right? So now that they scrimmed Team Liquid, they've gotten better at it. At the very least, they can probably play against it. Right? You have better laners in top and bottom. You have gold leads. Cloud9 have the highest first blood, first tower, first bear. They have the highest CSD in most of their in top lane. They are an early game team. And what happens when an early game team puts pressure on people who are not playing well and who are known to collapse under pressure? They collapse. And so C9 might be worse in macro, might be worse in objective setup, but it won't matter because they'll have an item. Berserker will have 3 items to Masu's 2. Masu can play as good as he wants.
Why are we so sure about this though? Masu, like honest to God, I feel like Masu has had a better split than Berserker.
I agree. Busio is, but Busio just been dying in lane for fun.
He's been dying sometimes, but he's also had really like great clean moments. Like at the start of the split.
When he was playing Ornn, I agree. He was playing. I actually commented. I was like, "Damn, your Ornn looks so good. It looks like the freaking MSI like when BLG were playing Ornn, or Keria was playing Ornn, he looked really good, but he doesn't look that way anymore. He collapses as soon as playoffs start showing up, as soon as there's any pressure, he just collapses. We saw that last split. We saw it at MSI, and we're seeing it here now. And so I don't have confidence.
The mid lane will be also very important. I would say that Jojo I thought he played pretty well against TL.
I think he did too. On Zeri,
I feel like he was probably the better mid laner in that series. My take. The thing is though, like last time they did play, which was in the playoffs, that the reason, I mean, okay, Berserker choked a little bit too. He missed he just missed drag some crucial Zeri ults. But Jojo kept, like, how many times did he get caught in the side lane by Inspired and like Bwipo? How many times did he just randomly die? I guess he's improved on that. But that would be like something I would worry about if you're a C9 fan. Like, how is Jojo gonna play? He's a very he's a great mid laner, but he has ups and downs for sure. Like you said with Busio, I think if Busio is playing like a Nautilus, or he's forced to play like yeah, I say Nautilus is the worst champ. If he's forced to play Nautilus, I would be scared if you're a FlyQuest fan. But honestly, like, I think it's a bit early to give them the choker label. Like, I don't think that they choke, let's say, any more than C9 has. And with, like you said too, that they will have this practice for the lane swap, but I don't think like learning a lane swap is just something that you just magically get done in 1 week. They'll get better, but it's not something that you learn. Like, it took TL basically like all of MSI to get really good at that.
That's not true. Team Liquid were always a good lane swapping team to begin with.
They were good.
Even LCS,
they were good in LCS because no one had ever seen lane swaps before, and they had better players that have better macro, like CoreJJ, Umti, and Impact. But actually doing the lane swaps, like against like top esports,
they choked. They
rolled. They got rolled.
They choked that
series. They got rolled by the actually good teams.
No. Here's the thing: Team Liquid didn't look as good as they did in LCS. When they were lane swapping in LCS, they looked better. And that series,
lane swapping versus, like, I don't know, Bwipo and Masu is not the same as lane swapping versus 369 and Jackie Love. That's not the same.
I mean, they were lane swapping against T1 and it was working.
They were, and I think that's actually that's T1's like big weakness. The reason why that TL does do really well against T1 is because they are able to like neutralize top laners, and like Zeus was basically a non-factor for like every game that T1 did play against TL. But in the games that T1 like did manage to win, like, it was pretty convincing for T1.
Didn't he have a Zeri top game? Zeus had a Zeri top where he just like ran it and completely won the game 1v5.
He did. That was a big throw by I think that was the game where Umti flashed forward W and just died.
I think so, yeah. If Team Liquid, C9, oh my god, FlyQuest cannot stem the bleeding that we have seen, and I see you in chat, I see you saying Busio had one bad series, but this is a historical thing for him. Every time he plays high pressure matchups, like he's playing for his seeding, every time he does that, he chokes. Right?
How long has he been playing? How long has he been playing?
He's been playing for LCS for 2 years.
Who was he on last year?
100 Thieves.
Okay. I mean, that was a pretty bad team in general.
Yeah, I won't blame him for what happened on 100 Thieves. But again, you look at his most recent track record, playoffs, didn't look good, was inting. He had some games, the easier games, he looked well. But in the finals, he choked. At MSI, he didn't look good. And now he's looking like that again. The meta has changed a little bit, right? I think when we had the Senna and he could play his Ornn or his Kench, he looked better. But right now, these champions, like you said, his Nautilus looks like Mickey X historically. I mean, come on, the guy has had two splits on this team.
His Nautilus was not as bad as Mickey X's in that Fnatic series.
Yeah.
Mickey actually just died 2 times for free. Like, oh my god, I don't know what happened there. But it's okay, it's Fnatic, so it's fine.
Most recently, let's put it that way, not historically. Yeah. Most recently, when playing in the playoffs, when playing at MSI, and now he's doing it again. We've seen it happen once. What's to say it doesn't keep happening? Cloud9 are putting pressure on all their laners, and this guy, we've seen him when pressure comes, he doesn't live up to that pressure. And so that's the angle I'm saying. I'm saying FlyQuest are a better team in general, but I don't trust Bwipo to somehow start looking like last split Bwipo and picking up the Darius and Olaf and just running the games. I don't trust Quad to be the carry, right? He's a great mid laner. I think he's top 3, but I don't think he's going to take them above that level. I think Inspired's the only reason we're having this conversation. I think he's phenomenal. Inspired and Masu are like the top 2 on that team, and I just think it's very difficult for Masu to play when his support's just dying over and over. Like, what are you going to do?
So let's say though, like these comps that like C9 have been so successful with, like I would say specifically what comes to mind is like Renekton and Nidalee. They've had a lot of success with that with the Blabber, I think. I don't know. Whipple has not had a great split, but like I said, when you are lane swapping, it's not that simple to get done. I would say too, like with Cloud9, they don't feel like a team. I don't know. And
I
like,
agree.
Like, okay, if what happens, what you're saying is gonna happen, like yeah, that would be C9's let's say their win con. I just don't think like they're so much better than FlyQuest that they're just gonna be able to 2-0 them. That's the problem. Like when you actually get to
I'll
these,
give him a
like,
2-1
team fights, maybe. I think though, maybe C9 wins the first game. I think though, the longer the series goes, I actually think FlyQuest has a better chance. I think that they play more as a team and they will be able to adapt better to what's going on in the game. That's my take.
I think Bwipo has weak mental. And we've seen that. Bwipo historically, I'm saying historically, has played bad in finals. And he's talked about that publicly on like why does he choke in finals? And he's trying to work through that. But Bwipo is someone who doesn't do well when the pressure's there. And when you
This is not a final though.
Well, what I'm saying is
It's regular
when you have Thanatos and Blabber camping him, getting him 50 CS, 30, 40 CS down, killing him on repeat with Renekton Nidalee, right? You go into that game 2 and you're like, damn, maybe we almost won that game if I didn't in. And then he tries to make those hero plays that he did at MSI and his Urgot, despite winning lane. And guess what? He starts losing the game, and then it collapses from there. Again, I think FlyQuest are a better macro team. I think C9's like macro is non-existent. I don't think they play the mid game very well. But I just think that they match up quite well to FlyQuest's form right now. And I know that Chad is saying that Busio's Nautilus 2v2 C9's bot lane. I agree. They completely destroyed Cloud9 last split. But again, Berserker was not playing these champions. He wasn't playing nearly as well. And he's on form, and Busio isn't.
Are we like so the champions Berserker is playing though? Like are these like really his strong champions per se though? Like when I think of Berserker, I think of Zeri, but like they're not even playing Zeri bot, they're playing Zeri mid. Like the champions that are meta right now, ADC, like from what I see, just like Ezreal, even Jhin. Seeing a lot of that.
Berserker
like,
plays Ezreal, Kai'Sa, and obviously Zeri. Zeri is a flex. We've seen it bot lane. We've seen it mid.
We have mostly mid though, not as much bot. Like even when they picked it versus a TL, right, it was Zeri mid.
Yeah, but that was the first time we saw them put Zeri mid.
Was that the first time?
Yeah, Jojo hadn't played Zeri mid before that.
I would put more stock into that, considering they're playing TL, than I would put into the times they pick Zeri versus X and X team.
All right. Moving on to our last topic of the day. C9, just continuing with C9. C9 over the offseason changed most of their players. Sven moved away from support. He just wasn't playing. They brought in Vulcan. They brought Vulcan back. They kept Fudge. They picked up Jojo Pune, and they kept Blabber. So they kept 2 players. They kept Berserker. I'm sorry. Okay, so they got 2 new players. It's not complete overhaul. I'm thinking of like the roster right now.
Big changes though. I would say big changes.
Yeah, they brought in a new mid laner, and they spent most of their budget on this mid laner. The reports, I'm not going to put much value, but it's close to $1 million, right? $750K plus dollars. And we've heard publicly from coaches, from players, from staff talking about how we spent all this money on JoJo, and we didn't have budgets because of like budget cuts and because obviously we're in esports winter and whatnot. that we don't have a robust coaching staff. And what's Cloud9's problem? They're macro. They're mid to late game. Who's teaches you that kind of stuff? The coaches. The coaches are the one that bring the strategic mind. The player is supposed to have the hands. They're supposed to have the mechanics. They're supposed to have the laning. It's the coaches that help you out with the mid to late game, with the strategizing, with the drafts. We've seen a lot of criticism with their drafts. We just saw them pull out a full AD comp, which Reaper has done weird drafts before. There's an L missing. I hate you, Julian. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I got debated by chat.
What happened?
Someone came in chat and was like, "Yo, there's an L missing," and I was like, "Cloud9, FlyQuest. I see the L everywhere." And then I realized, oh, he means Russell. I thought he meant L because of
there's two L's in Russell.
Oh, my bad.
Everyone makes this mistake, but I've never met a Russell with one L in their name.
I've never either. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah.
It's an instinctual thing for some reason.
Maybe, yeah. I thought he was talking about Shopify losing. I'm sorry, Julian. I'm sorry. I don't hate you.
That must be my friend saying that. What is their name?
Julian_G.
Oh yeah, that's my friend.
I don't hate you, Julian. Yeah.
I told him to.
But back to my point, they spent so much money on JoJo that they weren't able to get a robust coaching staff.
Yeah.
My argument that JoJo wasn't worth it. Like what we've seen now, Russell. What we've seen from Jojo Pune was not enough for the amount of money that he took. When you think of Team Liquid, they have Rapid Star, they have they used to have Arrow, but Arrow moved. They have Rainover, they have Spawn, they have Haytham, who's an analyst. When you look at FlyQuest, they have Arrow, they brought in Demonte, they brought in Mithy, they have Nuke Duck, they have a bunch of coaches. NRG, obviously, last year when they were doing well, they had
more coaches than players, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they had a coach for every single player. They had Apollo Soaz, Demonte for mid lane. I forget the other two. I think Jutes was one of them, and then I forget the last one, who was for jungle. And then they had obviously ThinkGuard. They had their Croissant as well. They had a lot of coaches, and so the coaching thing really matters, especially when it's to mid to late game. And Cloud9 spending their whole budget on one player was not worth it. Had they gotten a different mid laner and then just gotten more coaching staff, this team would be a better team. Agree, disagree?
Which mid laner? My question is, which mid laner?
They could have Quad. They could have picked up Quad. They had an import slot to give.
I guess they did because the one before was MNS, right?
Yeah, they were actively trying to do this. Cloud9 didn't used to be like, hey, let's bring in these Koreans and whatnot. They used to be, hey, we have an academy team. We brought in Blabber from our academy team. We brought in Licorice. We brought in Fudge. We brought in Zazel. We're always Smoothie. They don't have that. Yeah, they're not the team that they're the team that imports and does all this stuff, despite them finding success with that. But yeah, they're the import team. And so
it's quite a good example though. I mean, like FlyQuest picked him up for a second split.
They picked him up in the Challenger scene.
He was in Challenger for LCK. Or LCK was LCS.
No. So Quad played LCK.
Yeah.
For a couple years. He played over 100 LCK games. And then name changed and went to play in FlyQuest Academy. Completely destroyed everyone's faces. But he didn't need to play there. He could have played on LCS. They could have made a bid for Nisqy. If they wanted someone to control Blabber and to give that guidance, they could have picked up Nisqy. They won with Nisqy before. They've had their best splits with Nisqy. They could have picked him up. Nisqy had just left Mad Lion. Mad Lion didn't want them. Everyone knew that Nisqy wasn't going to be on that team because of Elioya. They could have made a bid for him, right?
So do any of those players, though, I mean, at the end of the day, like, these teams are businesses. They do have to be profitable. Let's say you bring in a Quad that, I mean, you have half a split less to work with in terms of his resume, so that's something for sure. The fact that he's on the Fly Challenger, so it's not that simple to necessarily bring him over. I don't know how the process works exactly.
Well, before he got in there, he was a free agent. Like beginning of spring,
he was lesser known, right? I think didn't he make his name at LCS Challenger?
No, we knew about him. We always knew about him.
We knew about him, but he came to LCS because he had like stage fright. Is that what it was?
That was parts of his issue, yeah.
I would say that, like, honestly, like bringing in JoJo, like I wonder, like, okay, and what was all the talk about going into the first split of this year? Like, all the talk was C9 is super team, C9 is the best. I'm sure they made a lot of fans that way because there's a lot of JoJo fans too. I'm sure they made a lot of money. on like merchandise sale. Obviously, they spent a lot, but like these teams are businesses at the end of the day. So bringing in like a high profile pitcher like player rather than like someone that's like relatively unknown to a more casual fan base, I think like it's
They
this
brought in
much more
MNS
like
just last
immediate.
year. They brought in
Yeah,
MLS
MNS,
and
and he was
Diplex.
MNS was like not nearly as good as JoJo. Like, there's no way we can say he's better than JoJo.
What I'm not saying that. My argument is the argument you're making is it's not just for gameplay. They spent all that money. Look, I don't care how many fans Jojo Pune has. You're not making that 900,000 reported salary in merch and fans because you got Jojo. You're not making that money,
How long is he
especially in
signed
esports
for?
winter.
How long is he signed for?
Let's find out. My guess is 2 years.
I think something that I've noticed, like 2 years.
My guess.
Well, we don't know for sure, but I'm assuming if you're spending a lot of money on him, you're going to have him like secured for a theoretical long period of time. And I think that you can't really like undervalue the importance of like what one of the top players in a position does for a team in sports. Like you constantly see like players come in, they have a great split, but they can't always follow that up. And what does separate like those great players from like those good players that have like pop off seasons or pop off splits in esport terms, that they're consistently able to be near the top. Jojo has not been perfect by any means, but like in terms of talent and performance, like I don't think anyone would say that like he's never been like one of the better or the best mid laners in LCS. If you're talking about long term consistency, I think that actually like it's not a bad turn. We have no idea what Quad's gonna become. Like guys like Licorice, who was the best top laner. I mean, I guess it's not really his fault, but like he's not exactly what he used to be. Like Spica, as you mentioned before, one MVP. There was some changes, I guess, as you mentioned, but consistency is hard to come by. I don't think that you should like undervalue that, and you shouldn't like be too sold on just because this guy had one amazing split. Like all of a sudden he's gonna like be constantly there. And like, are there other teams that have a lot of coaches? Because just because you have like a lot of coaches, I don't know if does that always automatically mean like that you're gonna be a great team.
Well,
I
you
think
get
a lot
good
of that is like,
coaches.
but who are you going to like? It only makes a difference like if the coaches that you're going to replace them with are better than what the alternative would be.
So here's
Like,
the
you
thing: you
have a
bring
trade-off,
Quad
right?
and Demonte.
Yeah.
If you brought in Quad and Demonte, right? NRG let a bunch of coaches go, and I'm pretty sure if Cloud9 went to them and we're like, "Hey, we want these players, we want these coaches," the coaches aren't going to stick with NRG and they're going to go with Cloud9 because Cloud9 is, a historical work. Maybe because NRG won, but NRG let them go to begin with. NRG let Demonte go. They could have picked up Demonte, right? They
So why
already
did they
had
let them
Mythian.
go?
Budget cuts.
I mean, like, it's not like coaches are free either.
I'm not saying they're free, but they're not $900,000.
You're right. It would be, I would say, at least like specifically for the draft, it would be a lot better if they had another coach. That would give some more input because like the draft that they've come up with, I think is it's so dependent on just you being like so much better than the other team. I don't know if they like put together a great draft or like, yeah, like this is just clearly we have a better draft, we're a better team, and we'll win like that. With that respect, yeah, but I guess like I don't know, like are there teams that have a lot of coaches that aren't any good?
Let's look at the bottom teams. IMT have no coach, have two coaches now. One coach and one assistant coach, which every team has.
Like Anero was like the coach they chose. Was he even a coach before?
He used to be a long time ago, but the Golden Guardians before the Golden Guardians that made that was like a really good Golden Guardians. He was the GM of the team. He was the coach of the Golden Guardians before that, like a long time ago, 2020.
So he put the team together, but he didn't like.
He wasn't. He used to coach a while ago, but not recently.
That's not the same.
Well, they used to have Sharks. Immortals had Sharks and Joey. I'm just saying how many coaches, right? So they had two coaches. Yeah. We're just looking at the bottom team. Shopify have Turtle and Sam Revan. 100 Thieves have Spooks, if I'm not mistaken, and Golden Glue. And then who's the bottom team as well? Dignitas have two coaches as well. They have Treats, and they got rid of their head coach and moved up Mabry. So yeah, look. it's almost equivocal. You have less coaches, you're doing worse. NRG are the only ones that actually have like coaches, but NRG have way more problems than just their macro. When you look at the top two teams from last split and this split with FlyQuest and C9, coaches help. Coaches do a lot of stuff. And my argument is you could find Nisqy. You don't have to bring Quad. You could try to make a bid for other mid laners, right? I'm not saying I know where all the mid laners are, but what I'm saying is if you spent 150, 200K on a mid laner, that frees up $700,000 to get coaching staff, to get other analysts, scouts, all that infrastructure to actually get you to win.
So
Maybe
did
then.
So did C9 have that? I guess I'm thinking of something else. But like, what? So how many coaches did they have like before they signed like Jojo? Let's say was it like directly because of Jojo signing they can't get anything else? They had to fire everyone. Was it a gradual thing?
I don't know. I think they only had 2 coaches the split before as well.
Like, I think most teams were starting to like cut off the academy.
Yes.
I mean, C9 kind of prided themselves in having an academy, but it was falling off.
Yeah, C9 cut off their academy in 2023. Yes, and their academy had to go to DSG. With most of their players were picked up by DSG. I agree with you. They had budget cuts, but like when you think about it, what I'm saying is, let's say you had a budget of $1 million, like $2 million, right? And you took $1 million of it and you spent it on the current coaching staff and the rest of the players. And then you took another $1 million and gave it to Jojo. Instead of taking the second $1 million and give it all to Jojo, you could have split that, got a really good mid laner, and then gotten 2-3 extra coaches. And the level difference, like, sure, you won't have a MVP in the mid lane, but you will have better mid to late game, which is the problem with this team.
Yeah.
They've always been playing early game well. They were best team in early game last split. They're the best team in early game this split. But when it matters, they had no macro. They have no mid game. They have no shot calling, no leadership.
Hard to argue with that. I think though, like, if we look at it like from that perspective, right? They had just come off. They won the LCS title, if I'm not mistaken, the split before.
They didn't.
They signed Jojo.
NRG won.
They didn't. NRG won.
They lost to NRG.
Before NRG.
They won the one
before NRG won. They had won it, and they had been on a good run of splits, right? They were pretty dominant in the LCS for those few years. If you're looking at it from solely like Cloud9's perspective, I mean, what made them like so good, from my understanding, was that they just had like, did they not just have the best roster in the LCS in those times? Am I wrong?
Not really. When you look at last year, like with Diplex, I don't think people were thinking that Cloud9 roster was the best roster, because they had that whole fiasco before. I guess they did have Berserker and Fudge, so they had a top. Yeah, I'd say they had a top 3 roster. But I mean, like Fudge that year, FlyQuest,
people thought he was amazing.
Well, right? He was a rookie like 4 years ago now. But everybody was saying that the FlyQuest won the offseason. FlyQuest was going to win that season. FlyQuest had the best roster last year, right? This year, Cloud9 had the best roster, but didn't have the coaching staff to help.
But everyone going into the split, nobody like questioned at the start. When they signed Jojo, nobody was like, oh, maybe this is not a good signing. I didn't hear takes like C9 is not going to win. Pretty much like every person that like I heard talk about the LCS said, yeah, C9's going to win and nobody's going to touch them.
So because we didn't know about the coaching staff situation. We didn't know.
Oh, okay. That's like a hindsight thing. And like, maybe it's not just you don't know. Maybe just you're not thinking about it in that moment. Like,
no, they hadn't announced.
Should know. I guess they hadn't announced. But the point I'm trying to make is that from that perspective, even if they drop some coaches, I don't think people's opinions were going to change that C9 is going to run the league. They're the best team in the league by far. Maybe like NRG gives them a push based on what they did in the playoffs. Obviously that didn't happen, and C9 wasn't great either. But like, hindsight is 2020. But from that moment, like, it seemed like a good move. Like, if you have the chance to sign Jojo, man, like, just why wouldn't you sign the best player in free agency, right?
Not if it costs your whole budget and you can't have anyone else surrounding.
Right. Obviously,
that's my argument.
It was short-sighted. Yeah, it was short-sighted, and it's hard. I'm trying to play devil's advocate, but the best I can come up with that is it's hard to foresee that when in the immediate, like, you have the opportunity to sign the best player and like in paper, like, have a roster that can compete internationally at a high level. That's what they wanted to do, and they went for it. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I wouldn't say that like they were like wrong for it when like everyone at the time thought that yeah, this is going to be the best roster. I honestly don't think
Actually,
that.
we've seen so many different times people saying super teams do not work. We saw it on
But this
FlyQuest
was like
the
this
year
was
before.
the super team though.
No,
Wasn't
we've
this
had
the
so
super
many.
team?
Dude, last year, FlyQuest super team, crash and burn. Who else? We've had so many super teams like just like absolutely fail in the LCS, in LEC. LEC had a super team like the G2 with Reckless that crashed and burned. The super teams very rarely work out, especially in the LCS.
Yeah.
Not
But
just that.
nobody
Not
was
just
thinking
that.
that in the moment though. That's what I'm saying. Nobody
There,
was thinking that. Everyone was convinced C9 was going to dominate and just win the split so easily.
everyone thought they should, but people were actively saying like, hey, just because it's a super team doesn't mean they're going to win. We've seen super teams fail. There was a whole thing where like we think Cloud9 is first, but they're a super team and we know super teams fail. We just saw it last year. And then the other thing is like when you look at Cloud9, people were only hyping them up for a week. Guess what? Second week or 2 weeks. Second week they lose to Shopify. They go 3-1, right? In the first 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Third week, super week, they lose 3 games in a row. Now they're 3-4.
Yeah.
Yeah, after that, everyone's like, what's going on with them? Everyone's pointing fingers at their coach. I have an interview with that coach.
People kind of jumped back onto the boat though when they started to. They look like the real Cloud9 at the end of the split, and also when they faced
They didn't. They never
now
looked like
the
a real
then-
Cloud9.
when they faced the then first place 100
Yeah,
Thieves
100 Thieves.
in the
Yes,
playoffs, and they absolutely destroyed them. I think people were convinced that okay, this is the team that's in form. This is what the team is supposed to look like. Obviously, it wasn't the case, but people still had that like in their mind. I don't think like
that's the narrative that always goes around super
Yeah.
teams. Like, oh, they're all good players. They should mesh. And here's the thing: from Cloud9's perspective, I don't hate it. I don't hate the Vulcan signing. Sorry, I don't hate the Vulcan signing because Vulcan is supposed to be the shot caller leader that's going to like engage support, that's going to help Blabber and JoJo like lead the game. But guess what? Vulcan just isn't that. We've seen it time
yeah,
and
I
time
don't
and
know what
time.
happened to him.
Vulcan is not a shot caller. Neither
He
is
used to be a
Blabber.
good Nautilus guy, but like recently, like his Nautilus, even that is like
I agree. I personally like. Look, I'm from Maryland. Blabber's from Maryland. I will always fight for my boy Blabber. But what I don't understand is how you can be a jungler, a starting jungler for years and years now. You played in LCS in 2018. Like you've had so many years of experience. You weren't starting back then, but still, you had so many years of experience, and yet for some reason you are unable to be a leader. Because as a jungler and as a support, generally those two lanes or roles have the most amount of time. When you're AD carry, you're focused on last hitting and trades. When you're mid laner, same thing. Top laner, same thing. Jungler, you can be looking around. Excuse me. You can be looking around different lanes while you're doing your camps. You can be shot calling, making the plans. You have the most amount of brain power allotted to leading the game. We see Inspired. He's a phenomenal leader. We've heard from FlyQuest. He is the leader of that team. He's the one who sets up all these plans and does all this stuff, right? We know that junglers often take this role. We know Peanut, the reason how Light looked good. Peanut, back on Gen G when he won the title, he was the one leading the team. He was the main shot caller. Now on Hollow Life, he's the main shot caller. That's what gives him his value, right? His mechanics may have deteriorated since back in 2018, but he's still this leader. And I don't know why Blabber is unable to level up to that, to be that. Because again, he has good mechanics. He's a good carry jungler. He's very good when it comes to farming and like out farming the other person while finding ganks here and there. But like there has to be, we have to say something. It's about time he starts becoming a real leader. Because otherwise,
we know the answer to that. We know the answer to why. It's just I think that it's his work ethic. Like there was a documentary that C9 was putting out like of their season, I think, last split. And,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Berserker was like, I think you saw it, right? Berserker was basically crying because no one on his team like even cared. That's what, by his words, but like if your teammates saying that, and it's hard to believe that your teammates are like trying to improve, or even that. Most importantly, I mean, I've coached like a lot of sports, football, wrestling primarily, but in my eyes, like the best players on your team should be the most vocal and should be holding people accountable because that sets the foundation for any team. Everyone kind of follows suit on that. And that's why like I really love Impact, and people always harp about this for him. Like he sets a standard, right? And even Inspired, oftentimes it comes off as like I don't know, let's say rude to his teammates, and he had that little thing with Jensen. It is what it is, but to hold your teammates accountable is very important, and maybe C9 got complacent with that, and they're realizing now like, okay, we can't just not do anything. Like we can't just not practice, not play solo queue. Like yeah, not playing solo queue is like kind of crazy to me. Like people would think that it doesn't help you improve. It doesn't make sense to me. Like you're a professional league player, like solo queue, what helps you laning obviously helps you to like get ideas, like figure out sort of the meta. Even if you're not hitting like top 10, like at least play. And that's why a lot of people too, like in that stream that you were doing with Dr. something, what's his name?
Respawn, yeah.
Dr. Respawn, he was saying like most guys like they should at least start streaming, right? I mean, guys on TL, like they do stream, not all the time, but like you wouldn't question their work ethic, and that's why they're getting better. But yeah, Blabber doesn't seem to be so far like the guy that has constantly been trying to improve or even hold his team accountable to do that. Is what it seems in the outside perspective.
I don't know his solo queue habits. I would be surprised if he's not a grinder, because I do see him in like high solo queue all the time. Because I watch other streamers and usually like they're top 50, top 100, and Blabber's in their games. So I would be surprised if Blabber wasn't someone who grinds solo queue like Berserker and Boogie and like Yawn and APA and whatnot. But I will say this: if you are not the leader of a team, your value, especially when you're a veteran, your value goes down. I made this argument. I talked about this with David on the show. That Blabber can be replaced, because at the end of the day, I would rather have a Peanut who has a worse mechanics but has better shot calling and can lead my team, and I can put the Jojo Punes and the Berserkers who are all mechanics and no brains. But when you have your leader ends up being all mechanics and no brains, all of a sudden, especially in the jungle role, which is especially important, you don't have the luxury of finding the mechanical. You need someone like a Niski in the mid lane who can facilitate and help run the game. You can't have a Jojo Pune with a Blabber, especially with the amount of money you're paying this to Jojo.
Yeah. I think though with Peanut, he's a great shot caller. It does help though that he's played with, I think along with that, you need also like a support that's, I don't know, maybe I guess Vulcan, I don't know how Vulcan is, but you need a support that really like goes with it, and you need to like develop a rapport over a long period of time. I'm not a historian of like LoL esports, but in any sport, I think teams need time to develop, and we're too rushed to
I agree.
give opinions about players. And sometimes like they just need time to work together. Like C9 have still made changes to the roster. Let's see. I mean, the split's not done yet. Let's see how they do this year, obviously, and let's see how they do next year. I want to see like the rapport you develop is not something that's immediate. Like Peanut, I guess he's just like an absolute god. But when I watch Hanwei Life play, like it's really like you're right. The plays he makes and like the coordination they have. Who is the support on Hanwei Life again?
Delight.
Delight.
But Delight is not a
feel
shot
like
caller.
He's not, but what he is though is that he is a very attentive person, and anytime that Peanut makes a play, Delight is constantly following up, right? Like perfectly following up, and like it looks like so like crazy in sync. I have clips of this saved. I don't have them like with me right now, but like they're just so in sync. It's crazy to see. I don't see this with C9, and if they did have that, that would be nice. But yeah, maybe we need to give them more time too. Like it's only been a split and a half, or I guess almost split and 3/4. And with this new roster, it's only been 3/4 of a split. And they do look better, even though they haven't looked great. They do look better than last split. Let's see how they do.
I agree with you. I think we should be giving more time. I checked. Jojo Pune is signed until next year, so like he has another year in his contract. Everybody on that team is signed to the end of 2025 or 2026. So hypothetically speaking, theoretically speaking, they could all just be one big core that stay together. My next argument, and if you have like maybe another 10-15 minutes, we can go into it.
Yeah,
If not, that's fine. I would say that C9 are going to make roster changes despite having everyone under contract.
I don't think they can. I mean, it seems like they don't have much money to do it. So
I mean, I don't know how the
they?
contracts. I don't know how the contracts are played, but I'm sure they can. There's no.
if
It's
you're
not like
paying
a
someone that
guaranteed.
much money, if you're paying someone
Not
that
Jojo.
much
Not
money,
Jojo.
okay.
I'm saying the rest of the team. Like for example, they were looking So Fudge was under contract, and they still replaced him. They were looking. They were trying to see if Tarzan would join their team. So they were gonna get rid of Blabber. Maybe they look at Vulcan. They're like, yeah, Vulcan is not who he used to be, and like we want a different support, right? Also, LCS next year, everything is changing, right?
Yeah, that's
Which
true.
means
Good
the
point.
rosters are
There'll be
not
more players.
necessarily, the rosters are not necessarily going to be stable, right? Maybe you can pick up a Busio from FlyQuest. Maybe you can pick up, probably not a Core JJ, but maybe you pick up a Huhi instead. Huhi doesn't want to stay on energy, and you maybe now that you have a Korean with Berserker, he's feeling more comfortable. It also adds you have Reaper and another Korean. Maybe they can do some sort of Cloud9 like Korea 9. That they'll have Thanatos, they'll have Huhi, they'll have Berserker, and then their head coach will be Korean. David is there too, like their manager. So you you can build some rapport that way, and maybe hopefully some synergy that way. So my argument is that C9 are probably gonna make roster change. Actually, that could be your argument if you want. I can argue the other side if you feel like this is easier.
I'm not like extremely familiar with the contracts. Like in pro sports, like most of the time, like when you give these massive contracts, like a lot of it is guaranteed, and that's kind of one of the tenants in order to get that person secured for a long period of time.
Only JoJo's
Okay.
is a large contract. The rest are significantly less.
I think that I don't think it would be in their best interest to like keep changing players, because like maybe the player you get is a marginal improvement, but we saw like they got Thanatos over Fudge. Yeah, he's a better player than Fudge, but like their weakness has not really changed. I guess, and that maybe that's like the wrong signing they made. Maybe that wasn't the problem. Top lane wasn't the problem. Which, yeah, honestly, I don't think it was the problem. But Thanatos is definitely a better player. So I guess it depends on what position you'd be changing and which player you'd be bringing in. The thing is, you did mention there would be a larger player pool to draw from, I guess, because 2 teams are being cut. I just don't know which players are like that guy that's that's going to make the difference from like what would be available.
Well, I would agree with you. I would love for Cloud9 to have like a 3-year roster and just run with that team and try to improve. And maybe make 1, maybe 2 changes every year, not every split, right? And have a coaching staff that sticks through the entire way, right? Like have a vision and have the coaching staff decide that vision and go that way. That's why I was excited for Immortals coming into the split. Coming into the year, they signed Sharks, 2-year contract. They said, "Hey, we have a 2-year project. We want you to pick up some rookies, pick up some good. Like we want you to do it." And he picked up Castle and Mask, and you can tell like Castle probably is stud. Mask maybe not so much. Maybe next year you get rid of Armeo and Mask, and all of a sudden you have Tactical, Ole, Castle, and you bring in Quad, for example.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to, right? No, you would. You bring in Quad, and then you bring in for jungle like I don't know who Shaden, right? Or maybe you get rid of Castle, you bring in Surdy. Like you had a base, you had a structure, kind of like what NRG did, right? They had all these coaches. They had their top mid and top jungle and mid. They changed out their bottom lane, won the split, and that was the idea. We have a 2-year project, and they completely gutted it after 1 split. So that's why I give Immortals a lot of hate. Because they can't even what they did was messed up.
For that now. Then I don't see a world in which they are still in the LCS next
If
year.
Immortal stays, oh my god,
I would be shocked. Like that would be like the one team like I'm so certain is gonna go. The other one I don't know, but for sure it would be them. I would think.
Yeah, I would actively start a hate campaign against Immortals. I think I don't know what I would do.
I was gonna say to you though, like and on this topic, I know it's maybe it's a sore point for today, but I like well, if Shopify is staying as they said that they would, what changes would you like to see in that roster?
All right, what changes would you like to see in? What changes would I like to see in Shopify? Well, our jungler is going to change because he's going to do his military service. So our jungler is going to change.
That's why he locked in Evelyn today.
That's what
the last game in a long time.
That's why what?
That's why he locked in Evelyn.
Yeah.
That's why he locked in Evelyn.
He locked in Evelyn. Yeah.
Off.
I think there's that. So I don't know if Tomio is the way to go. Maybe you gamble on Shaden. Maybe you give Tomio a little more time. I think at the end of the day, you probably change.
Fake God for sure, right? Surely?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of who actually to keep. I think you keep Insanity. I think Insanity is a good enough player. You could keep Bvoy. I think he's a good enough AD carry. I do think though that you could pick up someone else in AD carry. Like, I don't think the difference between Bvoy and a Sven, for example, is so big that you can't, do that.
I think Zen's a more stable player. B-Boy, like, I think has more pop-off moments, although today he was very, very poor. A lot of
Yeah.
random deaths, failed flashes.
I think you could
Usually he's not like that though.
you could pick up a
Usually.
Tomo, right? I think Tomo is good enough. Um, I don't know how a Tomo Zazel lane would look like, but I think my point is I would probably the only player I would 100% keep. The other thing is like I always look at it starting from the coaching staff. So I'd rather start there. The question is, do you keep Sam or do you replace Sam? And from there, we can kind of decide. Because if you keep Sam, maybe what you do is you keep Zazel, you keep Insanity, you keep Tomio, and you change top and AD carry. You bring in maybe Tomo, AD carry, and you bring in like a Surdy, and you try to go again. Or maybe you get rid of Zazel and you try to bring in a better shot caller in support. So maybe if you keep Sam, you keep more of the roster. But if you're getting rid of Sam and you're bringing in a head coach, there are a lot of free head coaches, right? Sharks obviously is someone that you could bring in if you want a project, like a couple year project. I don't know that Sharks would want to come back to North America after what happened, but you could pick up Kelsey. Kelsey's not on a team, and she's a reputable coach. You could bring in Yamato. You could try to make a bid for Yamato, right?
I'm surprised he was fired in the first place. I thought that like the drafts were not the problem for that team. They just had a terrible team.
Yeah, like
Like
maybe you bring in who's a shot calling support that we could pick up in the LCS. Huhi, right? Huhi is a shot caller.
Yeah.
So you bring in a Huhi, right? So let's say this. Let's say you have Bvoy Huhi, you have Insanity mid, you bring in Bo jungle, and then for top lane you bring in Surdy because everyone's calling Surdy. You could bring in a Fudge if you want a more stable person. If you want like more young blood, you could bring in
What about
Surdy.
Castle? Are we sold on Castle?
We don't have import slots. If we're bringing in Bvoy
Okay,
and
that's true.
Castle's not a bad option, but then you wouldn't be able to bring in Bo or Bvoy, right?
Yeah.
You have to get rid of. Another reason I pick Huhi is because he's Korean, and in general, I like to pair Koreans because it makes it a little bit more comfortable. Ole, is another option, but I would prefer Huhi just because we know he's more of a shot caller and a leader, right? And this team would lack leadership, which is perfect for Huhi, right? Assuming 100 Thieves are leaving, maybe you pick up River, actually. Let's say 100 Thieves are leaving. You pick up River. You have Insanity, right? He's an import. You pick up Huhi. So maybe scratch Bo and pick up River instead. I just think there are a lot of... Maybe you even pick up Sniper instead of... what's his name? I personally wouldn't. But if you're Yamato and you're like, hey, I'm going to take this rookie team. I'm going to bring in some leadership in Huhi. I'm going to bring in aggression when it comes to the top lane with a rookie and Bo, who I've already played with and I know what he can do mechanically. And we have a good mid laner and a very good AD carry, like a mechanical AD carry. I think that team probably makes worlds, right? So what changes would I like to see? It starts from the coaching staff. I think I would be down either way. I would be down to say, hey, we have Sam. We're getting 2 extra coaches. Like a strategic coach and, maybe a third positional coach or like maybe 2 strategical coaches, maybe a one that does whatever, you bring in a couple more coaches. I would be down to stay with Sam, have more support. So you have Turtle, you have Revan, and you have two more coaches who may be a little more experienced. Maybe you get Kelsey. Maybe Kelsey wants to be a strategic coach. I mean, I'm sure she'd rather have a job than not have a job. Maybe you bring in Kelsey Moser. Maybe you bring in, I don't think Yamato would not be head coach, but yeah, maybe you bring in like one of the not like a performance coach. Maybe you bring in the mind body guy who like has an insane record of winning whenever he goes to any team, right? he's not like a gameplay coach, but he's a performance coach, right? You bring in a performance coach like that guy, and all of a sudden you have better tools. Like one thing, I did an interview with Insanity, and he was talking about how sometimes the pressure just gets to the team, right? And not everybody's like that. Sometimes it gets to him, sometimes it doesn't. But like when pressure gets to you, it kind of sucks. So there are a lot of different variations. I'm down with, hey, let's get a new head coach. Let's get but it would have to be like a really solid head coach with coaches underneath that they interview for. I think it's a little simpler to keep Revan. I'm a huge Revan fan. I'm trying not to let my bias show, despite the fact that he's had bad like results this split. This was his roster, and like at the end of the day, he has to take some responsibility for that. But I personally, as a fan, I would be down as a if I wasn't a fan and I closed my eyes, I would say sure, maybe he's not the greatest. I feel like you give someone at least more than a year. Yeah, I would say keep Revan. Maybe get Kelsey as a secondary coach. Get like a third performance coach, and then make some upgrades in the roster. Maybe because you have Revan, he's Korean. Okay, this is the roster. I know I went all over the place. You bring in Revan. You bring in mind body performance coach. You bring in Kelsey. So you keep Revan. Sorry, you bring in Kelsey, and then maybe you bring in like a strategic coach, an analyst, maybe heck, maybe even like Loyola, who's a scout to scout other teams. And then in terms of roster, you go Surdy, you go River, Insanity, B-Boy, Huhi. What do you think of that roster?
I think that. So can you say the roster again? The 5 players.
Surdy in top lane, River in the jungle, Insanity mid lane,
Mm-hmm.
B-Boy 80 carry, Huhi support.
I mean, yeah, on paper it's not a bad roster. I'm actually of the opinion that I think that coach for sure has to go. I know
That's
that
fair.
you know, you should give coaches time. I think that's the case though, like if you actually see improvement. And look, they did technically improve at the end of the split. They went on a miracle run where they played a series of teams that weren't great and they got close games with them, and they had one close series with FlyQuest and they like lost anyways. It was better than the start though. I mean, I'm a Canadian, so I want to cheer for Shopify, but I just have those games the taste of those games in my mouth at the start of the split or the middle of the split where they're just like there's like 2 kills in the game and they're just like 10k gold down to TL. Like
Yeah.
it's still ingrained in my mind. And like the improvement they did make in the split, like was that because of Revan or was that because they put Boogie back in, which makes you wonder why did they take Boogie out in the first place? How well does this coach actually know his team? Even with the drafts, like I think that Shopify is a very unique playstyle. Like like Insanity is kind of like the I think like he's the most important part of the roster, I would say. In the games they've had success, he's been the one popping off, him and Big B-Boy, but I think Insanity mostly. He has very like niche picks, but even with those niche picks, I think that sometimes they're not like playing it smartly. They're just playing it like for the sake of playing the niche pick. It feels like that one Draven game. Like we don't even see like teams in like LCK or LPL playing Draven, but like somehow we're supposed to believe that like this Draven mid because it's Insanity just going to work.
I'll
Like
push you on
picks
that. I'll
today
push
like
you on
Aurora.
that. We've seen other teams play champion. Like Asol was busted for years. Like
Yeah.
literally no buffs at all. No one was playing it until Chovy played it once because he saw APA. So just because no one picked it up doesn't mean that it's not good. I will push you there.
But Asol I think is a much different champion than Draven. Like Asol is a hyper scaling champion.
But
Right?
we've seen
Draven has a
Chovy play Draven mid in solo queue. Like he was spamming it. Maybe he didn't find the opportunity in draft to pick it up because people were aware of it and were like playing around that. But that doesn't mean that it's not legit. Like if you look at what Draven was doing that game, they played well around Draven. Like FlyQuest did a good job at killing him and making sure he doesn't cash out. But again, that was a misplay. Had he flashed properly, flashed over the wall, they don't kill him. He gets a cash out. All of a sudden, you have a Draven who just got a 700 gold like injection, and he can run the game. So
that's best case scenario. The problem is like you can say that about a lot of picks. Like same thing with like Lucian Nami, or like if they just did this, they had the gold lead in the lane, but outside of the lane, like they didn't like take this trade. But like I think that's like part of the difference that like separates like NA. Like some picks in NA just I would say just don't.
Oh crap! 1 sec. My headphones died. Hello?
Oh,
Yeah, we're good.
I can hear you now though. You can hear me. I'm guessing. but I
Hello,
can hear
hello. Can you not hear me?
you. Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah. Okay, so I was saying that some picks just don't look good in general. I would say too, like they have a very distinct way to play. Well, not distinct, but they have a very clear way to play. Like they love to play for the grubs. They always rotate Bvoy and Zazel. Like I guess like I feel like every game I watch Zazel, he's still level 4 in like 9 minutes somehow, which I find funny. But they always rotate to the grubs. I kind of wonder though, like, is it like the smartest thing to do? Like game 2 versus 100 Thieves today, like no one took the Drake for 17 minutes.
Yeah, and game
Like,
3
how
for like
crazy is that?
19 or 20 minutes. Yeah.
And in the games that like Shopify is not good enough to stomp teams. Like in the games that they've been competitive in, which have been not that many, but the games they have been, they've all been like absolute like almost all like 35 plus minute bangers. So like how much better would it be? Like how much value are you really getting out of the grubs if you can't even properly side lane anyways? Because like Shopify, they're not a side laning team. They like to make some plays around the map. You know, Zazel likes to walk around, try to make some plays on the map, and that's why he's always constantly behind the levels. But they love to skirmish, and I would say like that's what kind of why like the game was sort of fun today to watch. 100 Thieves is along that line as well. But why don't they like just play for the Drake? If you know these games are going to like the distance, wouldn't it be so much easier like if you played for Drake, because you can just use it so much more effectively than you can with the grub since you're not like silencing well anyways? Wouldn't it make more sense just to have that assurance? And if you have those 3 Drakes, right, and it gets to a point where there's a Baron and there's a Drake, like it puts a lot of pressure on the enemy team
Did you watch
to
our
have
FlyQuest
to.
series? Game 1, we were ahead. We had 3 Drakes. It was a Hextech Soul. We went for the last Drake, which would be Soul, and we lost the game there. So they've tried both ways. I will say that.
Fair enough. I think though that I just don't understand like why they play for the grubs so much, especially considering like I never felt like honestly Fake got not a bad team fighter, honestly. Like he had some pretty decent team fights today. I just don't think like you want to. I guess he can't. I don't know. He can't play tanks either. Like his Cassandra game was terrible. I don't know. He doesn't do much great. I think that maybe like they should focus on the Drakes. Like I don't know how much value like Grubs is giving them. My thoughts on that.
I'm getting sad, Shopify. With that, I will end that here because I am getting a little sad.
How
Thank
long
you.
was this stream? I
We've
lost
been
track of
streaming
time.
for about an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay, that's a lot of content.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for filling in. I know I had a few people that I had lined up, and at the end of the day, I had no one show up. So I really appreciate you stepping up and helping me with that.
Appreciate the invite.
No problem. Good luck to your Team Liquid, and I will. I'll see you probably in my chat every now and then when I stream.
Yeah, thank you. Have a